This is the Weekend Jazz Update with Jashan De Silva. On this week's episode, it's about Shabaka Hutchins, his biography and best hits. Born in London in 1994, raised partly in Barbados, Shabaka's story already tells you a lot about his sound. This is a musician shaped by movement, geographically, culturally, spiritually. He started out playing the clarinet at age 9, studied formally at Guildhall, but very quickly stepped outside the academy. A key moment was joining Tomorrow's Warriors. From there, everything opens up. Shabaka isn't just a saxophonist, he's a multi-instrumentalist. Tenor sax, bass, clarinet, flutes, including the Japanese shakuhachi. He's led or co-led some of the most influential UK groups of the last 15 years. Sons of Kemet, The Comet Is Coming, and Shabaka and the Ancestors. Each band sounds radically different, but they're all driven by rhythm, ritual, and a deep sense of purpose. You'll hear Caribbean groups, Afrobeat, spiritual jazz, electronics, dub, protest music, sometimes all in the same track. And along the way, Shabaka's collaborated with everyone from Sandra Orchestra to Under 3000 and Floating Points. Awards followed, Mobos, Mercury nominations, Jazz FM Innovation Prizes. As The Guardian put it, Shabaka has become one of the most powerful voices in British improvised music. And this is the Weekend Jazz Update with Jashan De Silva. On this week's episode, it's about Shabaka Hutchins, his biography and best hits. During this suburb, we're going to be talking about his biography. Shabaka Hutchins didn't just arrive, he reshaped the conversation. He was born in London in 1994, but part of his childhood was spent in Barbados, and that dual identity matters. You hear it everywhere in his music, Caribbean rhythms, African traditions, and the experimental edge of London all living together in the same sound world. Like many jazz greats, Shabaka started young. He picked up the clarinet at age 9, trained classically, and later studied at the Guildhall School of Music and Drama in London. But what really shaped him wasn't just formal education, it was the scene. In the early 2000s, Shabaka became part of Tomorrow's Warriors, legendary UK jazz development program led by Jenny Nyans and Gary Crosby. If you know British jazz, you know that program has produced entire generations of innovators. Shabaka wasn't just learning standards, he was learning community, identity, and how jazz could be a living, political, joyful thing. By the early 2010s, Shabaka was everywhere, not just as a sideman chasing gigs, but as a bandleader with a vision. He didn't just form one band, he formed three, each with a different sound and purpose. First, Sons of Kemet, a radical idea on paper. Tenor saxophone, tuba, and 2 drummers. No bass, no piano. Rhythm up front. The band sounded like a street procession, a protest march, and a dance party all at once. Then there was Shabaka and the Ancestors, a project rooted deeply in South Africa. The group leaned into spiritual jazz, Afro-futurism, and history. And finally, the Comet Is Coming, a trio with synths, drums, and a sax that sounded like sun ray crash landing in electronic music, punk energy, and cosmic chaos. What made Shabaka unique was that none of these projects sounded like side projects. Each one was a full universe. Along the way, he collaborated with Sandra Orchestra, Floating Points, Under 3000, and countless others. Awards followed, Bobo Awards, Mercury Prize nominations, Jazz FM Innovation Honors, but then came the curveball. In 2023, at the height of his influence, Shabaka announced that he was stepping away from the saxophone, not retiring from music, stepping away from that instrument. He spoke openly about needing space, about listening differently. His final saxophone performance took place on December 2023, and instead of disappearing, he re-emerged, flutes, piano, space. His solo work, especially African culture and Perceive Its Beauty, Acknowledge Its Grace, shows a musician turning inward, asking different questions. And you're tuned into the Weekend Jazz Update with Jashan De Silva. On this week's episode, it's about Shabaka Hutchins, his biography and best hits. Now it's time for some trendy music news. So the NEA Jazz Masters 2026 have been announced, and we're talking heavyweights here. Jazz broadcaster Rhonda Hamilton, powerhouse vocalist Carmen Lundy, and legendary pianist Patrice Rushen. These icons will be celebrated at a special concert at the Kennedy Center on April 18th. And that's not all. The Grammy nominations have dropped, and New Orleans phenomenon Samara Joy is leading the pack. She's up for Best Jazz Vocal Album for Portrait and Best Jazz Performance for her duo-track Peace of Mind Dreams Come True. Also, jazz giant Chick Corea's posthumous Trilogy Trio Live with Christian McBride and Brian Blade is nominated for Best Jazz Instrumental Album. For more information, please visit arts.gov/honors/jazz. And there was some trendy music news on the Weekend Jazz Update with Jashan De Silva. We're going for a short break, we'll be right back after that. When we come back, we're going to talk about more Shabaka Hutchins' best albums of all time. Stay tuned. And you're tuned into the Weekend Jazz Update with Jashan De Silva. On this week's episode, it's about Shabaka Hutchins, his biography and best hits. During this suburb, we're going to be talking about some of his best albums of all time. So to understand Shabaka's impact, start with the albums that changed the temperature. First up, Burn from 2013, the debut by Sons of Kemet. 2 drummers, tuba, sax. The Guardian talked about galloping hooves drumming and a Pharaoh Sanders-like sax cry. It's physical, ritualistic, and impossible to sit still to. Then there's Your Queen is a Reptile in 2018, fiery, poetical, joyful. Each track honors a legendary black woman set to Afro-Caribbean grooves and protest poetry. Militant rhythms meet soaring horn lines, make it both danceable and profound. From there, it's Channel the Spirits by The Comet Is Coming. Sax, synth, drums, free jazz colliding with electronica. Tracks like Summon the Fire feel like chants from another planet, earning a Mercury nomination. And finally, Wisdom of Elders by Shabaka and the Ancestors, recorded in one day in Cape Town, steeped in Afro-futurism and sunrise energy. Trance-like explorations that rooted Shabaka deeply in African heritage while looking boldly forward. And this is the Weekend Jazz Update with Jashan De Silva. On this week's episode, it's about Shabaka Hutchins, his biography and best hits. During this summer, we're going to be talking about some of his best albums of all time. So if you want to understand Shabaka Hutchins, there are a few albums that act like doorways. You walk through them and suddenly the entire world opens up. Let's start with Sons of Kemet, Your Queen is a Reptile from 2018. This album is impossible to ignore. Even the title grabs you. It's a response, direct, unapologetic, to ideas of empire, monarchy and inherited power. Instead of royalty defined by crowns, Shabaka celebrates black women who shaped history. Harriet Tubman, Angela Davis and others. Musically, it's volcanic. Two drummers driving the pulse, tuba anchoring the low end, Shabaka's sax cutting through like a siren. It grooves hard but it also speaks. This is jazz's protest music, dance music and spiritual release all rolled into one. Then there's Sons of Kemet Burn. This is a debut and it already sounds fully formed. The energy is raw, galloping rhythms, North African and Caribbean influences and saxophone lines that feel closer to Pharoah Sanders and polite post-pop. What's remarkable about Burn is how physical it is. You don't just listen, your foot taps, your shoulders move. And then there's tenderness also, especially in their haunting take on Rivers of Babylon. Next up, Shabaka and the Ancestors, Wisdom of Elders. Recorded in South Africa in a single day, this album also feels ceremonial. It's deeply influenced by Sunbra, but also by South African jazz traditions, township rhythms, and collective improvisation. The horns weave together like voices in conversation, while the rhythm section pulses underneath with patience and power. This is music that feels ancient and futuristic at the same time. And finally, The Comet Is Coming, Channel the Spirits. This one is jolted of electricity. Synths, drums, and sax, that's it, no safety net. The music is loud, cosmic, psychedelic, and ferocious, joyful. Tracks crash forward with punk energy and dance floor intensity. Shabaka's playing here is unhinged in the best way, screaming one moment, chanting the next. So these four albums form the spine of Shabaka Hutchins' recording legacy. Everything else branches out from here. And there was some insight into some of Shabaka Hutchins' best albums of all time. George Howard with Spirit, Fletcher Henderson with Grand Terrace Rhythm, Steve Reed with The Watering Hole, and Shabaka Hutchins with Reaching Back Towards Eternity. And this is the Weekend Jazz Update with Jashan De Silva. On this week's episode, it's about Shabaka Hutchins, his biography and best hits. Now it's time for some trendy music news. So Rahel Tas, an Estonian pianist and composer, is back with a beautiful reflective album called Back and Forth. Released in late 2025, this record captures a real moment of transition in Todd's life. Written over an year and a half after moving from Denmark to Lithuania, the music looks backward with warmth and forward with curiosity. It's about nostalgia, growth, and an emotional in-between space when everything is changing. The album features 7 original compositions and brings together an international quintet, musicians from Estonia, Denmark, Poland, Lithuania, and the UK, including award-winning British guitarist Rob Luft, whose melodic touch adds an extra layer of color throughout. Tal says his presence feels like a missing piece and you can hear that chemistry immediately. Tracks like Parno, named after her hometown, gently balance steady rhythms with evolving melodies, evoking memory and return. Recorded in Tallinn after a Baltic tour, Back and Forth captures the band fully in sync. And there was some trendy music news on the Weekend Jazz Update with Jashan De Silva. We're going for a short break, we'll be right back after that. When we come back, we're going to be talking about some of Shabaka Hutchins' best albums of all time. Stay tuned.